Saturday night, Memorial Day weekend 2011, was a busy time for the Vehicular Crimes Division of the Houston Police Department. Between the hours of 6 p.m. and 3 a.m., officers had made 37 DWI arrests, 6 of them felony arrests. They also responded to 8 crashes, including one that was fatal. It was a bad night, and it was about to get much worse. Just after 2 a.m., off-duty Police Sergeant Jeff Bickle came upon a major accident near the 100 block of the North Loop East.
I have a motorcycle rider here. He's not in very good shape. No, he's not fatality yet, but somebody needs to come up here and make it. They got several cars involved.
Officer Kevin Will, an accident investigator with the Vehicular Crimes Division, responded.
88, I can swing by.
Officer Will worked his way through the traffic backed up by the accident. The primary investigator for the scene had been diverted elsewhere, so upon arrival, Officer Will took the lead, taking photographs and recording laser measurements. The time was around 2:15 a.m.
Already an accident unit out here. They're primary on it. However, they're asking for North Shepherd assistance to stop all eastbound traffic and make them exit off the freeway. And then we need to back everybody off. They're going to have a survey and everything. We're going to be here for a while.
Officer Jeremy Medlin was among those working the scene.
With an accident like that, where you have someone who's been seriously injured, as a patrol officer, you would go out to the location and basically secure the scene, not let anybody through, not let anybody out who's there, witnesses and whatnot, and block roadways. We're first responders, so you go there and you basically see the field and then you decide what it is and what you're going to do.
After meeting with the accident unit and assessing the situation, Officer Medlin positioned his car to block the freeway entrance ramp that was nearest the scene. He had other responders take positions further down the freeway, establishing a perimeter in which investigators could work safely. Officer Melanie Estrada was one of the 3 units that set up a barricade about a mile from the scene to divert oncoming traffic off of the freeway.
When vehicles were set up, there were 3 of them blocking all 4 lanes, and we had the flares out. We were continuously, relighting them just to make sure all traffic was diverted correctly.
About 30 minutes after the freeway was closed, with the investigation in full swing, Officer Estrada spotted a Volkswagen Beetle approaching, and it wasn't slowing down. Behind the wheel was 26-year-old Johann Rodriguez. He was intoxicated. He was speeding. And he was headed straight for the barricade.
The vehicle started speeding up towards us, and then it slowed down. And I let the other officers know that it was coming because I thought for sure it was just going to blow through us. It went around my vehicle at a high rate of speed, and I'd left my car door open just in case something had happened. And I ran to my car and put the pedal to the floor, and I tried to catch up to it. It could have been going 80 miles per hour when it passed me.
Officer Medlin, who was still blocking the entrance ramp, was the next person to spot Rodriguez approaching.
I knew it wasn't a patrol unit because behind him I saw a patrol unit coming. I saw flashing lights. And just at the speed he was going, no officer would drive towards the accident that fast. Nobody drives like that. I grabbed the radio and screamed whatever I could scream, and put my car in drive, all at the same time, and started to pull out into the highway. I threw my lights on, try to get them to wake up, stop, pay something, do something. I mean, you got a cop car chasing you and one pulling out in front of you. You would think,
A security camera at an auto leasing company along the freeway captured the last moments of Rodriguez's approach.
Yo, watch out, Norton, watch out. SO, watch out.
89 nights. We had someone break through our scene. We're in an ambulance en route. It looks like it could be a fatality.
Nice, send me 2 more units over here. We just had a car blow through, and I think we may have an accident unit down. Send me 2 more units, please.
89. It's an officer.
Hey, man, we got an ambulance around.
There's no pulse on our officer here at the scene. He was hit.
Officer Will was struck by the car at a speed of over 85 miles an hour. He was killed instantly. His last act in life was to shout a warning to a witness he was interviewing, saving a life in his moment of death. The impact of Officer Will's body caused so much damage to Rodriguez's car and to his face that he was forced to come to a stop.
I remember brake lights, and he started to pull over to the side because he was in the middle of the freeway when he hit the officer. And he pulls over to the left, and so do I. And I get out of my vehicle and let dispatch know where we are. And there are people running across the freeway. And I'm still not sure exactly what's going on just yet.
It was gut-wrenching. It was a state of panic. You don't want to think that what had happened had really happened, but as you're getting closer and getting, running up to the scene, you're building the picture. You just don't want to see it.
And I walk up to the car and I see him, and he's got this really grotesque cut in the middle of his face, and his entire sinus canal is visible. It was pretty nasty.
Officer Estrada and myself, we approached the car. We came up to the car, and it's a lot to process, but I was shocked that he was alive.
So I notice him, I notice his hands, his music's blaring, the windshield's cracked, and down in the passenger seat is some beer of some kind. I don't even remember what kind it was anymore. And I look past the passenger window, and there's a body on the ground, and at first I didn't know if it was from the previous fatality or if it could have been a new one.
I placed him in handcuffs, and I searched him to see what he had on his body.
His radio was too loud to hear my sirens. He was too intoxicated to know what was going on.
Medlin's search revealed a small bag of cocaine in Rodriguez's pocket. While there was no cocaine found in his system, his blood alcohol level was 0.19, well over twice the legal limit. On call for the district attorney's office that night was Assistant District Attorney Allison Bainbridge. She was working with officers at another scene not too far away when police radio chatter stopped all of them in their tracks.
And I heard Kevin's crash. I didn't hear it happen, but I heard the officers right after it happened, calling for help, calling for other officers. I heard it over their radios.
Officer Don Egdorf was working another location when the first calls came through.
I was actually on night shift at the time, in May of 2011, was assigned to one of our BAT vans out at the Gulf Freeway in Edgebrook. And as I was sitting out there waiting on other officers to bring intoxicated drivers to me, I heard some traffic on the radio that really caught my attention.
I received a phone call in the early morning hours from my chief of staff, who informed me that one of our officers, Officer Will, had been involved in a traffic-related accident, involving a possible impaired driver, and he was deceased.
We have a vehicular crime section at the Harris County District Attorney's Office. At the time of the crash, I was the chief and responsible for that group. I was also responsible for the group of prosecutors that makes fatality call-outs. And everybody understood that if there was a serious crash involving an officer or fatality, that I wanted to be present at that scene. And so I got a phone call within minutes of that crash.
With the death of Officer Will, a second accident scene was now on top of the first. The officers who had just seen one of their own lose his life still had to finish the investigation.
Well, Kevin was investigating another scene, so you had scenes overlaid on top of each other. So there had to be, that scene had to be finished so we could do justice for those victims, and Kevin's scene had to be processed.
When I got up to the scene, I was actually on the westbound lanes of the loop going by and to exit and U-turn and come back up, and it looked like chaos up there. There's police cars everywhere, there's ambulance, there's fire trucks, there's a little bit of everything.
The scene was certainly not what I anticipated. It was a very traumatic scene.
There are lots and lots of officers all over the place, and in the center, up the highway, are these 3 sheets, and you know that under those sheets, that was Officer Will in separate pieces.
And I remember walking up to that scene and seeing his body. My first thought was for his friends and coworkers, the other police officers who had witnessed this tragic incident, but still had to function as a police officer and investigate this scene, manage this scene, and keep it together.
Kevin Will was 37 years old. His wife, Alicia, was 6 months pregnant at the time of his death. She was at home when they delivered the news. Rodriguez's trial was held in June of 2012. Although he pleaded guilty to intoxication manslaughter of a peace officer, it was still up to prosecutors to present a case that would allow the jury to fully understand exactly what happened that night.
The evidence is overwhelming, and even on a plea of guilty, it obviously changes the state's burden because it is assumed that it's beyond a reasonable doubt, but the fact is you still have to make sure the jury understands the intricacies of what happened.
We put on the whole story for them. We were fortunate in this case to basically have the entire story on video, so they got to see what Kevin saw before he died.
You see as Officer Will comes to rest, you see as the defendant's car comes to rest, you see as he's being taken out of the car by officers who are present at the scene. At the same time, you've got the radio call-outs from all the officers. So you put it all together, and it's very eerie and pretty unbelievable that you can see it as it unfolds and as it happens.
Officers who were on the scene that night took the stand as witnesses. In addition to actual footage and dispatch tapes, a reconstruction video was presented. The reconstruction team duplicated events and conditions exactly, and was able to confirm that Rodriguez's car was accelerating the whole time. He never attempted to slow down until after he struck the police officer. Jurors were also able to examine Rodriguez's car to see the full extent of the damage. Finally, they heard how Rodriguez had lied about how much he had to drink that night, and how he was in the U.S. illegally, having been deported twice before. After 4 hours of deliberation across 2 days, the jury came back with a sentence of 55 years. The death of Officer Will has had a huge impact on everyone involved. Many of the officers at the scene that night still suffer, wondering what, if anything, they could have done differently. But there is nothing anyone could have done. Rodriguez made one bad decision after another, and that set him on a path of destruction no one working that scene could have prevented.
Still to this day, I think about how tragic that was for his family to open the door and be greeted by police personnel and told that Kevin is not coming home.
I think the thing I'll probably never forget is walking up onto that scene and Kevin's pants are laying on the freeway. It's the first thing I saw when I started walking up there. And it scared the hell out of me.
I think the worst thing for me was finding out that he had a family. He had a baby on the way and kids. It was really tough.
I think gives me a little bit of peace to know that I do my part to make sure that the people who make the bad choices see justice, and that the families who have to suffer because those bad choices are made see justice.
I had to change shifts. I don't like working on the highway, and especially at nighttime, it's too dangerous. It's just too dangerous. So I've removed myself away from some of those. Because after the accident, responding to a wreck on the highway, I walk backwards at nighttime. I never take my eyes off the vehicles. I stand in the HOV lane until the wreck is picked up by the record driver. It's made a mark that I'll never forget.
In a strange way, I would say that it was a privilege to be there. And to be able to serve in that capacity.
You need to cherish life, Always go to work thinking that you might not come home. Tell your loved ones bye and appreciate everything you have and everybody you have. One day it's not going to be there.